Brodes Media.
I am so disappointed in what we witnessed. The lack of effort was brutal, and they got absolutely destroyed in that second half where they did not show up to compete whatsoever. When Doc Rivers is begging them at the end during the broadcast where he's looking at everybody's face when he's on the bench, and he's begging them to go out there and play harder. I mean, what are we talking about here? Professional athletes in Game 6 on their home floor fighting for their lives with their back against the wall. They really weren't fighting for their lives, but just from a hypothetical world, right here you are with the chance to push this to 7, go on the road and give yourself a fighter's chance, a flip of a coin, and they just looked miserable, and it's so damn disappointing when you're so desperate that you have to rely on Shake Milton to bring you some life, and you're running your squad through him a bit, trying to get him to be an energizer late in the game. Come on, dude, what are we talking about? A second half, a fourth quarter in a postseason series? That's the reason why you brought in James Harden. That's the reason why you made the trade to move on from Ben Simmons and to acquire somebody else so you could be, you know, in a fighter's chance here. And instead, you just looked awful. So, I mean, I know that there's been games in the past where I lost my cool and I was so pissed off that my face turned red and it was nonstop screaming into the microphone as loud as humanly possible as I watched the Phillies take a nice 4-0 lead here against the Dodgers in Game 1. Hey, it's baseball season now, so here we go. But all jokes aside, you know, I am pissed, but I'm more just looking at it from a disgraceful standpoint that they were not prepared to play, and specifically James Harden. You shoot 0 for 2 in the second half. The second shot came when the game was basically over and you were already ran out the damn gym. So really, he was non-existent in the second half whatsoever. Now, post-game, you heard his comments about he's going to be here next year and he's willing, when it comes to the contract extension, to help out the team to put them in a position to compete at the highest level possible. I don't know what Daryl Morey is going to do. I'm very glad that I'm not in his shoes, because this is a very difficult task. And here's what I won't do, though, because tonight is Hot Take City. I've seen the worst takes I've ever seen, and that's saying a lot because Twitter and social media in 2022 is arguably the worst time in history when it comes to sports opinions. So I've been hearing things all over the map, from fans to media members to local reporters, and the list goes on and on. I've heard that this team is stuck in purgatory, and they're stuck in the same exact spot they were before the process even began. You're an idiot. That is not the case at all. Now, I'm disappointed that we're in this position. I want to see an Eastern Conference Finals series. I need to see them advance from the second round, and they are absolutely stuck. You talk about losing in 7 games with Ben Simmons. Talk about losing the quadruple doink on the road Game 7 against the Toronto Raptors, the eventual champions who won the Larry O'Brien that year. And now a Game 6 loss at home after missing Joel Embiid due to injuries in the first 2 games, and who knows how it plays out if he wasn't playing with a broken face, a torn ligament in his thumb, his back that he's landing on nonstop, and that's not his fault. Don't say he's not doing his job and he needs to learn. No, Joel Embiid's doing fine out there, and he's giving you everything he had. This is just what happens when you are playing through this and people get hurt. Jimmy Butler missed 30 regular season games, rounding it up, but around 30 games, played 50. I'll get it right for you, for all the people that, you know, want to criticize me when it comes to this. Let's see. Jimmy Butler played 57 games this year. Or this was 20. Is this count as the 2021 season? I hate when they do that. It's 2021, 22. 57 games this year, 52 last season. The guy's been banged up. Now, he's balling, and he turned this series around big time for himself, and he exploded. Talk about 40 points. Talk about 30-plus. I mean, it honestly feels at times that my man is shooting 100% from the field, specifically from the two-point line and in, for two-point field goals, that is. It just seems like he never misses, and he's always outworking everybody, and it is what it is. But guys get hurt all the time. Kyle Lowry, not even there for you. The difference is the Miami Heat have guys that are stepping up while the Sixers are dealing with George Niang. Danny Green goes out, and that looks horrible. I feel so sorry for him because that looked like a painful one this deep into his career to suffer such a horrible-looking injury. And just the way that Woj is tweeting about it and saying that there's some scared feelings out there about how severe it is when we're talking about the MRI, it looked brutal. But this stuff happens when you're out there playing the sport of basketball. Here's what I won't do. Say that they are stuck in the same spot as they were before the process. We're talking about game 7s in the second round. We're talking about game 6 in the second round. This isn't acceptable, and you need to find a way to get over this hump. But to act as if they are in the same spot as they were with Iguodala, I mean, come on now. Let's use our senses a little bit better. So let's draw the line perfectly with all of these reactions. I'm hearing Joel Embiid is a problem. Joel Embiid is a loser. Yet those same people say Jimmy Butler's a winner. I love Jimmy Butler, and I think he's a dog, but he has not won yet. So he's labeled a winner. And oh, by the way, after the game, Jimmy Butler states, I want to play with Joel Embiid. I wish I could still be playing with Joel, even though afterwards he goes, I love being here with the Miami Heat, but I wish I could keep playing with them because I love them. So let me get this straight. Joel Embiid is the issue as the leader, yet Jimmy Butler's a winner. Joel Embiid cannot be labeled a winner. And then the guy who you label is the winner wants to be playing with Joel Embiid because he knows how much of a dog he is and how great he is at his craft, yet we're not going to factor that into the equation whatsoever. If your take is Joel gave up and Joel got out rebounded during a slow-mo of an ESPN broadcast and you don't think that he's tough enough here, then whatever. You have your own possible outlets. You utilize those personal outlets to get out those feelings. I completely disagree. I watched a Joel Embiid that was getting triple-teamed and double-teamed by Eric Spoelstra in the Miami Heat when he's playing so damn banged up, it's nearly impossible to be fighting through the pain that he is. And he's out there giving you everything. Are there a couple moments that I'm sure he would like to have back where someone out-rebounded him when the score was getting out of whack a little bit? Yes. He wasn't perfect by any means. But if we're going to nitpick and just look at the couple of areas that disappoint you and not look at the full body of work of what Joel Embiid does, well then shame on you. Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and Shake Milton, I acknowledge all of their efforts in this outing. They gave you everything they possibly could have in the tank. That doesn't mean Tyrese Maxey does everything perfectly, but in terms of playing the game out there with the right mindset of, I'm going to leave everything I have. What I have for you in Game 6 is everything I have. I'm leaving it all out there. That's the difference. There's a difference between that and making and missing your shots and scoring a bunch of points. They just gave you everything they had in the tank, and at this point, it wasn't enough to go up against a Jimmy Butler that was accomplishing their goal. You could see the difference in the thinness of the team. Tobias Harris came back to himself a little bit after exploding earlier in this postseason. And when I looked at the beginning of the series, I was a little wrong thinking and kind of demanding Tobias Harris to be sharper than what he was. He folded. James Harden, though, he's the number one culprit here of we went to get you. And the fact that you have 2 total shots in the second half and Shake Milton finished with 8 field goals. James Harden had 9. That's inexcusable. That's unacceptable. And I don't want to hear that we were running the ball around and passing it around and it just didn't get back to me. You need to find the fine line between being a facilitator and trying to get everybody else involved and then also helping out your team when needed. You evaporated. You pulled a Ben Simmons. How many times did we stress that Ben Simmons wasn't even there? He was non-existent in fourth quarters, not even taking shots in fourth quarters, just standing underneath the basket doing absolutely nothing. And that's exactly what went through with James Harden today. He did absolutely nothing for you. And I don't know how that's humanly possible, even with hamstring injuries. I'm sure that's limiting him, and he even mentioned that during the postgame, which was he was having problems with his hamstring over the last couple of years, and he hasn't really felt right yet. And now he's finally turning the corner of feeling a little bit better, which is ironic considering this is the outing that he puts on display play on the table when you just mentioned how it seems like you're kind of getting your groove back when it comes to your body. Here's my point. Joel Embiid, look at what he's doing through all of his physical ailments, taking all these shots, and some of them are ill-advised, okay? But at this point, the Miami Heat with, okay, anyone but Joel. Because Niang stinks, because Tobias wasn't going well, because James Harden was not going downhill and not being aggressive and not willing to shoot. So, of course, take Joel Embiid out and try and get him out of whack because no one else is going to deliver for them. I'm watching triple teams to a man that has a broken face, concussed, landing on his back, tripping over his own feet. And stop with the foolishness that this is Joel Embiid's problem and he's a dope for playing this way. Come on, man. How can you honestly watch the game and feel like that's your assessment out there? He's clearly giving you everything that he has in his body right now. He's a real human going through real physical pain, and this is what he gave you. If you don't see that, God bless your soul. Doc literally says, no one expected us to go anywhere when I was hired. Doc, what are you talking about? Okay? In what universe were you not brought in to try and get them past what their recent issues were at the time? Brett Brown wasn't getting the job done. They were getting stuck in the second round. So they brought you in, a proven winner, to take a stride in the right direction. Now, to be fair, I don't think they lost this series because of Doc Rivers. I have issues with some of his decision-making. For example, when you go to DeAndre Jordan to start the series without Joel, that sucks, and that's stupid. At the same time, Paul Reed would have picked up 5 fouls in 15 minutes, and then he would have had to use someone else. You weren't winning games with Bassey and Reed and changing this series around. It just wasn't going to be the case. Now, I'm not going to tell you that Doc Rivers has to inspire players at the NBA level like he's a U16 coach that's at the local gym, because that's not the job of NBA head coaches. You inspire yourself. If you can't inspire yourself, there's a problem. There were a couple guys that were not inspired the last couple of nights. I prefaced this by saying Joel Embiid, I don't think it's the lack of Joel Embiid being inspired. I think my man is finally being caught up with everything that he's dealing with from a physical ailment standpoint. I think that's the number one problem why we saw the Joel Embiid that we saw. He's not perfect. He does have moments where like, all right, Joe, I wish you did it a little bit different. But that's everyone in every single job ever. You just want to pretend like you're playing NBA 2K where you get hurt, but you play, we're going to battle through the injury by selecting the A button, and then your computer-generated player is fine and giving you 40 points. No. Imagine trying to do anything with a thumb that's torn. And then imagine it being the NBA postseason. It's a problem. It's a problem. So Maxey, Shake, and Joel, those guys kind of get off for the effort here, like in terms of screaming at the team for not showing up. They were there. But James Harden not being there, that's a James Harden problem. Tobias the last couple of nights, part of it is he is who he is, and that's part of the Tobias Harris experience. At the same time, these are the biggest moments. And you guys showed up big time and were just not a factor whatsoever. And that's so damn problematic. Every year, you look at other teams' benches, and then you look at the Sixers bench. The Sixers bench have arguably guys that shouldn't even be in the damn league. It's time to figure out how you can get deeper, where your sixth man could arguably be your starter. Your sixth man this year cannot arguably be your starter. Shake Milton is not an NBA starter. Matisse Thybulle, he does in this team, in this city, but he's not an NBA starter. Your sixth man has to be, your first guy off the bench has to be an argument that he can actually start, and he can take over certain situations. A secondary, primary ball handler. I love Maxey. The Maxey story is incredible. You need a real point guard, a real backup point guard, knowing that James Harden is going to be here.